Internet, and welcome to a live stream of Chasing Nerd Cred, where we talk about games. We are families that are busy, but still we find time to games, and it is the end of the year. My name is Shelby Stokes, and this is Philip Karen.
To see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. And this is my favorite time of the year. I've essentially put Phil in a headlock. I guilted him into being on this cast, and we're going to talk a little bit about Game of the Year. We're going to talk about games that didn't quite make the cut, and then next week we're going to come back and hit our top 10 lists and talk about what's cool, what's not, what I think is worth your time, and what isn't. But that said, man, it has been quite a year. We came in and 2023 was swinging all spring. And I remember telling you early in the year, I was like, this might be the best year of gaming ever, right? Like, you remember those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this was there was definitely a complicated year with a lot of big name titles rolling right off of the end of 2023 with God of War ending 2023, 2022 rolling into 2023. Yeah, I mean, you had all the big hitters. You had Diablo 4, you had Tears of the Kingdom, you had Starfield finally came out. I don't think you could have asked for a more packed year. Some of it panned out, some of it didn't pan out. It was a wild ride for sure.
Dude, it really was. And I remember like early spring, we were talking about like, hey, like there's all these hitters. This could be the best year of gaming ever. And like as we got later in the year, I keep looking at these like GOTY lists or these nomination lists. And I'm like, maybe it wasn't like the epic year that I thought it was early. But I mean, there was still a lot of heavy hitters in here. I think a lot of people put a lot of faith into Diablo 4 and a lot of faith into Starfield. And we're like, this is going to be the most amazing year ever. And I think like both of those heavy titles like came out to mixed reviews, and I know I'm going to be discussing those in next week's podcast. So I don't know, man. But what I can tell you with confidence is that I am ashamed and proud to tell you that I played and knocked off my list 40 titles this year. At first, I thought it was 41. Then I found I double counted. I got down to 39 titles that I'm saying goodbye to. Some of them I saw credits. Some of them I did not. Others I'm holding back, which takes me to 39 games that are off my backlog. And boy, does that feel good.
That's that's an insane amount of games. I'm just gonna say that. I don't know how, as a father and husband and traveling businessman, I don't know how you got 41 games down the hatch.
Here's how I did it. I don't do it well. You know what I mean? I play the main story. I go in there, I knock stuff out, and then I come out the other side like, hey, I saw credits, moving on. Or I get halfway in and I'm like, nope, this game is not worth my time or anybody else's. We're moving on. Like, I'm getting a lot of flack for my playthrough of Starfield because the internet's calling me out. Like, did you actually play this game all the way through? And I guess to their standards, I have not because I just did the main story and I didn't do any of the big missions.
Well, it does feel to me like there has been a lot of like people explaining to other people how to play Starfield, and when you have to explain a game like that, it's not a good sign, right? Like if people are like, "Whoa, did you do this? Did you do this mission?" And you're like, "No," you're like, "Dude, I know how to play a video game.
Right.
I know what's going like." And the fact that you're still trying to explain it to me is like, this is not a good look for the game.
It's like, no, no, I've done this before. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. And I'm going to share them a little bit next week. But essentially, I think Starfield is a very unique case because they got so like in their head about making one of the best RPGs of all time that I think that they all think that it is the best RPG of all time. Everyone's like, it's kind of got something. They're like, no, you don't understand. You're playing it wrong. Like, you're playing it wrong. And like, now it's like, oh boy, that's not a good path to go down.
Yeah, I mean, I have a theory on that, and here's my theory. My theory is that it's because it was set in space. There's so many games that have been set in space that get a ton of flack, like No Man's Sky. People said the same thing, where space is kind of boring. And even games that take place in space, in outer space, don't really take place in outer space. Like, for instance, Callisto Protocol from 2022. even though it's set in space, it really just takes place aboard one ship.
Mhm.
The minute that you begin to travel to other planets and there's nothing on them and they're auto populated and you're doing a lot of grinding, mining for minerals or resources, people go like, this is a little too much like real life. And I don't actually want to do that. So I think that were it not set on space or were it just set on a strange planet, they probably would have had a lot more success. But the space thing, no one has been able to capture that yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like you're such a loner in space, right? Like you're in your ship and you're just like going from, different environment to different environment. It doesn't feel interconnected, right? You're not like world building. There's not like a map to uncover. And I think it's got some serious problems. But anyway, so what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover things that are not on my top 10 list. There are some categories that we're going to highlight, and of these games that we're going to highlight, we're going to kind of fit them into different categories. And those categories are a party game. If people are coming over your house, you can play this. Narrative, nostalgia game, a good multiplayer game, best game I could not get into or bounced off of. And lastly, we're going to round out with one of the best family games or some of the best family games. We're not going to keep this to one game per category, but we're just going to kind of hop in and talk about them. And our first category up for discussion is the best party game. And one of the games that I brought here for the best party game is exactly what you may be thinking. This is Spider-Heck. Now, have you played Spider-Heck before?
I have not. So fill me in.
Dude, this game, I feel like this is a game made to sit down, drink a beer, have a soda, and just run around and destroy each other with. And I cannot wait to actually have friends to where I can play this game. I played this with my kids, and they are horrible at this game, and I had a lot of fun just shooting rockets at them. I think this could be one of my favorite games.
I love that. I love that. Let's see. Do you have a clip here for us? Is that what we're looking at right
Yeah,
now? We're
yeah.
just
So
looking at a little
essentially,
clip.
you're all in one screen, and you're little spiders that stick to the different platforms, and you're jumping around, and you pick up like RPGs or guns or swords, and you are essentially on this map just causing like turmoil between all the different players. Like they're fighting the whole time. They have a single player one that's like more wave based, but this feels like I just want to get the boys together and just hang out on the couch and then just hang out. I'm so disappointed that I am an older gamer where I haven't been able to play this, but it has stayed installed on my system until I find friends. So, could you find me some friends to play this game with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll play. I mean, what is this? A Game Pass?
Yep, Game Pass.
Yeah, I'll do it. I would try this. This appears from the surface to be a great game for Game Pass because this is what you really would use Game Pass for, right?
For
This
sure.
high risk, high reward type game that you're not going to go out and spend 9.99 to play it, or like I'm just going to dip my toe into this adventure, and then there's absolutely no barrier to entry for this. And this is what this game was built for Game Pass.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the art style is really cool and it really has that like pick up and play like feel to it. Like I think I could hand this to just about anybody and they'd be like, "Oh, there's like a joystick here that I can move left and right and kind of make my way around the map. I'm a spider, I stick to surfaces." Like it feels very user friendly and it's one of those that I really think is fun. We also brought another party game that you and I actually partied to on the internet. And what did you think of Super Rush?
Liked it. I think that for some reason I haven't revisited it. I think it was Mario sports games are always really fun in the first 10 hours and then they become a little bit repetitive. Mario Golf does a good job putting their spin on it. I felt like it was really easy to pick up. I felt like it was pretty really forgiving. They always tend to do a little too much talking during Mario sports games. They want to dive a little too much into the mythology of the world, and like I don't really care. I know what I'm here to do, and so I felt that in the very beginning it was a little dry, and I was like, I don't really want to beat all these courses, but it's really fun. And it's very easy to pick up, and it has some complex strategy. You and I had a really fun time when we did play it,
Dude,
doing
you cheated
some
that first match
competitions.
though. You blew me off the green. That was some bull right there. I remember that. That was some hanky ass Mario stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was. you and I both had more fun than we thought we were gonna have with that, like, competitively, and it was quite competitive towards the end, for both of us. But, yeah, it's a fun game. This is a game that you can play with young kids, 7, 8 years old. They'll be totally down with it, and, yeah, I enjoyed it. I just haven't picked it up since because I haven't, I don't know. I don't know why I haven't revisited it, but you saw end credits on it.
I did, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Like you said that these games are great for like 8 to 10 hours, and I think that's exactly the perfect way to describe this sports game. Like I really enjoyed my time with it. I got in, I got out. It was a shorter campaign than I would have imagined. I think it really was like 8 to 10 hours. And then once it was done, I was like, okay, I've played it, and next time that I have somebody over or you and I reconnect on the webs to play it again, like there's a lot of fun to be had, but I really feel like you need that other person like competing with you to make this game like come together. And I think that of the sports games that I've played, that's a pretty similar experience as you brought up. In fact, I was almost looking at like, should I buy the soccer game here because this is like similar to soccer? Do you find this has the same or less sticking power than Mario Strikers?
So, Mario Strikers has much less on the backstory.
Mm,
Mario Strikers is just like you're gonna play soccer and there's one game mode, right? Like there's one game mode. They're not messing around with mini games. There is definitely a bunch more variety with the golf. Like you have the different courses, and so you look at a golf game, right? And you go, what's the anomalous factor? Where's the replayability with this game? Well, the replayability would be in the different courses. The replayability here specifically is that every time you play, the wind is going different directions, and it forces you to sort of calculate angles. It sort of forces you to try to hit, and they have a lot of different game modes in Mario Golf, right? They
mhm,
have the speed golf, they have the regular golf, they have but the battle golf. So this is going to be much more complex than Strikers is, but Strikers is I think more fun, right? Strikers is like us playing a Street Fighter game, right? Like you wouldn't compare playing Street Fighter to this, right? You'd be like two different experiences. But playing Mario Strikers is like the same dopamine levels as Street Fighter. Like I'm gonna get in, it's gonna be super frenetic. I'm gonna slide tackle people. Whereas this is a much more like sip my herbal tea and chill out and be old and just hit a golf ball around for 18 holes, which is what I did with it.
So yeah, you're essentially saying that this is old people. This is an old people game. Interesting.
If you play it solo by yourself, yeah, like me and you, then
This is the
yes, like you
olds.
and I are
This game is
this
for
is
the
the old
olds.
this is the game for the olds. That is for sure.
Mario Golf, a game for the olds. Come and play it at any Bonaventure retirement community in your area. Open now.
I hope that sells it for you.
Come play and get 1 can of prune juice, also included. There you go. So party games, Spider Heck and Mario Golf, both high on my list. If you'd like to party, those may be games for you. I think that those are probably more adult focused games. Like we're gonna get to a games later that are more like I called them best family games, but I think of those as like games with kids, and maybe even kids could like be over while you're playing those.
Yeah.
Next category that we're gonna hop into is best narrative. And the game that I have selected for best narrative is this game called Immortality. I put together like a 10-minute short on my thoughts on Immortality. I think that this is a very important game because of the way it tells stories and really advances the medium. If you're going through and you're like, hey, is this worth my time? Should I go back and actually play this? I think the answer is yes. And part of the reason is because I think it takes this thing that we call a game, flips it on its head, and turns it into something completely different than anything you would imagine. I recently heard it described that this game is actually using an algorithm in the background that actually takes into consideration the player and how the player is interacting, and then will put in different jump scares based on how long it's been until you've had something interesting happen on the actual screen. So like it's a really interesting way to take like old film and tie a story together, and it has some supernatural things that play in. It's a hard game for me to be like, anybody anywhere play this game because it is so weird. But if you're really into like the artsy fartsy like film and the gaming scene, this is a must play and you're probably going to love it. Is it for everybody? No, but I think it is an important title.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that you had a lot of praise for as sort of a unique experience, right? The picture in picture, the exploration. You're like, it's not quite a game, but it is. But right, you're not going to be doing a bunch of typical battling. There's not the exploration is within the scene.
Hmm.
It's more like a hunt and peck or a looking around and being out observing and then trying to figure out how all the pieces put together, almost like a game of Clue. Um, but yeah, it's there's a lot of these games that are pushing the envelope of what it means to be a game, and I think this game is the prime example of that.
Yeah, and it's super creepy. You know, you're able to kind of rewind and fast forward throughout the entirety of the game, and I think it's pretty neat. Like it came out last year, it was on a bunch of GOTY lists. I kind of went in there thinking I was gonna hate it, and I ended up not hating it, and that I think personally, like I'm like, okay, this is much better than I thought it was gonna be. So pretty cool. I would recommend it with a tentative like, okay, here's what you're getting yourself into type warning.
What's the time to beat on this?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think that it
Or
varies.
what was it for you?
Ooh, I couldn't even tell you. I'm gonna cheat. Time to beat immortality. Immortality. 16 and a half hours is what this says, but what I have seen is that the plus minus on that is it swings pretty heavy. So if I get in there, it says 6.5 hours for the main story, main plus side 10, completion is 16 and a half. So Google lied to me. 6.5 looks to be the average playtime on this title.
Yeah, this is the time to beat is always lying. I mean, either for people like you or people like me. For people like you probably beat it faster. People like me, I'm way slower because if I get stuck on a puzzle, I'll be stuck on it for hours and you can add 5 to whatever they have whatever they've said.
Completion is 16, fill 60
Yeah.
hours in
Yeah,
immortality.
600 hours. Yeah, exactly.
Best narrative or standout narrative for you? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I had something. There's this game. I wish I had a clip for it. I was trying to get one uploaded to you, but maybe I put it on the wrong drive. But game called Venba. Venba is we play a lot of competitive games. We play a lot of heavy 50-hour, God of War, Starfield, super heavy exploration, burn me out for a month straight, Diablo 4. We play a lot of Fortnite. We play a lot of games where it's like, let's go on and do the same thing over and over again and just get shot in the face. And then every once in a while, you need a game
Feels like I
like
blinked.
Venba. I think that's how you pronounce it. Or you need a game like Immortality to kind of just be a palate cleanser and to kind of let the brain rest a little bit. Venba is another one of those games that is similar to Immortality in that it sort of pushes the envelope of what it means to be a game. This is a game that can be completed in 2 hours flat,
Nice.
so you can do it in one evening. It's a narrative driven story about the maintenance of culture through food and the importance of having traditions. And through food. And the whole game is you uncovering your family's long lost recipes and remembering and figuring out how to make the foods from your childhood. And so you put the ingredients in, and there are pieces of the recipe that are missing, and you have to figure out in which order to do things so that the dish comes out correctly. And it can be done in 2 hours, like I said. So you can sit down in an evening, you can play it, feel good about it, get your 150 gamer score that you need to pad your gamer score if you're
Yeah.
looking for that. Yeah, if you're looking for those chivos, you
Dude,
can get
I'm
about
close.
6 of
I'm
them.
close. I'm about to hit a hundo. I'm about to hit a hundo. It's coming.
100,000.
100K. Yeah, I'm close. I'm
Oh my
close. I'm
god,
gonna
like
hit it this year.
how close are you?
I think I'm like 98,000 or something like that. Like I'm in the zone. Like I'm close. I'm real close. Something's
Oh,
gonna tip me over.
there's gotta be we got to do a celebration for that. The
Gonna
minute that
play
you hit a
like
hundo.
yeah, play like Paw Patrol all the way through until I hit 100K.
That's exactly right. So it's a fun game. It's a good palate cleanser. I found it surprisingly emotional.
Nice.
much more than I thought it was gonna be, and it's worth an evening of your time. If you can get stomped in Fortnite 5 days a week, you can play this game for 2
Dude,
hours.
we know a guy that we should recommend this to as a good palate
We
cleanser to
know
watch.
we know a guy.
So like it's
That's for sure.
like so I'm like watching some of this gameplay right now. Like could you actually get a recipe off of this? Like could you actually like be like, "Hey, I'm gonna make dumplings tonight."
Yeah, but the ingredients are not like 2 teaspoons or a quarter, but, like, the preparation is correct,
Hmm,
like, the style is correct, so you could look it up and then go like, "I would like to actually make that recipe." They are real recipes.
dope.
They are real things that you could make so that you could be inspired by that and go make it, for
Huh.
sure.
Dude, I'm excited to play this. This will definitely be next year. I know that it's getting a lot of praise, and anytime that I have the opportunity to play a game that's only going to take me 2 hours to beat, like I am in because very rarely can you just get in, have a full experience, and get out and have it be like a top shelf experience. So I'm intrigued. Color me intrigued.
Yeah, check it out.
I
Add it
will.
to your list.
I will. Let's move on to our next category, which is the nostalgia play. These are games that were recently remade or something of that nature. And, I have a game that I am bringing to the table that is called Zelda Link's Awakening, the remake. I never played this game growing up. I never had the not the opportunity, but I never took the time to play this. And there was like some stuff that was very like hard to get through. Like you couldn't intuit your way through it. And it was back in the day where you're just like, oh, you got to take the thing and the thing and do the thing. And I just never did it. So when I went back and played this with like good graphics, I was like, oh, not only is this like a legendary game, and now I understand why it's a legendary game, but it looks beautiful. And I really like it really held up. Like normally I'm the one that's like, get remakes out of here. I'm not a remake fan. But anytime I have the chance to go and replay a remake and relive like something that I missed in the past, like I'm game for it. And this totally just hit me square, and it was great. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of those games. Like I've often thought to go back and do like Spyro or go back and do
Good
Crash Bandicoot
call.
or go back and do yeah, go back and do any of those old nostalgia games or things like I never had a Sega Genesis growing up. Right? So I did not do any of the Sonic. I never did Sonic.
Ooh, dude, no
So
Sonic. No Go
no Sonic.
Fast? Dun, dun,
No.
dun, dun, dun,
No,
dun, dun,
no.
dun,
So
dun, dun.
there is some desire to go back and see what I missed out on those, although I have a feeling if my taste for nostalgia is anything, it's probably not gonna live up to the hype. It's probably not gonna be worth it.
Dude, we should pick a month and play like a nostalgia game. Like, okay, February is going to be like a nostalgia game. You have to play one game because there's a list of them that I need to go back to. Like the FF7 remake, I never got the FF7 bug, and the remake has been on my list for a minute. And apparently the new one looks shiny, so I'm in. I'm in.
Well, I don't know if
Um,
you're gonna be able to handle that. It's 100 hours for main story alone, so
dude,
I hope I hope I hope that you're ready.
I don't know, and I also don't have a PS5, so maybe it's a fool's errand right now. Like I have a PS4, can it even handle it right now? Like I'm just a simp. I'm just a simp over here. The other game I brought for the nostalgia play is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. This game was on a few GOTY lists of 2022. This is a game I grew up on and absolutely loved, and I really enjoyed my time with this. What I will say is it's not vastly different. You know what I mean? Like I was able to go in, I did not 100% it, I did not hit every mission, but I was like, this is a cool remake. It's got the music that you would expect from back in the day, and it's got really good momentum like Tony Hawk always has. And I don't know like how to say it, but like Tony Hawk 1 and 2 were like some of the best skateboarding arcade like titles that ever came out. And in my opinion, like it's hard to take any of those later Tony Hawks and like really have them compare one to one to the 1 and 2. So I was like really impressed with this. I enjoyed this. I think I got it on sale for like $10, and that was like a perfect amount of money. But it was good, just like turn it on, have some fun, not too much narrative, not any narrative whatsoever, no stress. Just go out and do some kickflips, baby.
Yeah, you free skate. Listen, you play it until you try to do that one trick that they want you to do on the rail, and then you go, "This isn't
Yep.
possible, and you
Mm,
shut the system off.
yep,
That's all you
for
do. That's
sure.
how you play Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
That is one thing that I realized is like back in the day, I would just grind this out. Like I would do this over and over until I hit the perfect line. And now that I'm older, it's like, nope, I'm not going to do that. Like I have enough points to move on to the next level, and I'm not going to chase the bull at the end. Like it's
Yeah,
nope, not gonna happen.
that's exactly right.
Our next category is just a good multiplayer game, and I brought a couple of them here. Part of this category is I want to like say they're good multiplayer games, but also I didn't stick with them for very long. There's a third one here that I know you may have played a little bit. That's not on the list, but like. First things first, Grounded. You and I played Grounded for a couple of sessions. And by a couple, I mean, it felt like how many sessions we get in? Three, four or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was about that. Like here's the thing, the scope of that game
Yeah,
is so large
so large.
that it's a game that if you were like us and you were going from, say, playing Fortnite
Mhm.
to playing Grounded, the tempo of that game is very different.
Very much.
And you're going to have to relax and calm down and just chill. And just you're gonna have to accept that you're gonna be here for a while. And there's so much to see and do in that game, and it's such a great game that it's probably something that you and I should revisit and actually play it through. But if we did do that, we would have to commit to like probably 20 sessions,
Yeah.
right? Like probably 20 sessions because the punishment in that game for in grounded for being too aggressive to get to objectives is so high that you will lose an hour or 2 hours of progress almost instantly. If you get into an area where there are too many high level bugs, you're dead and you're
Mhm.
not getting your stuff back. And then you go, this is another one of those moments, especially as an old gamer, where you go, I'm shutting it off. Like
Mhm.
I'm done for the night because I lost all my rocks, I lost all my gear, I lost all my food, I don't have any water, I'm dying relentlessly, I'm screwed. So I think that with Grounded, and I think that you probably agree, you have to go into it with a certain mentality of you're gonna be here for a while. And if you can commit to that, I think you'll find it enjoyable at the end.
Yeah, it feels like a game that's really meant to be lived in, right? Like you say 20 sessions because you have to make the commitment. And I think like, looking back at my time on Grounded, what ended up happening is like I started it with like multiple people. So I started one game here, one here, one game here. And then by the end of it, I had done like that intro part three times. And then we got to a point where we got bored. So when we got bored, we were like, hey, let's like run deep. And like you were saying, you hit these high level bugs, you die, it's 2 in the morning. Well, we're going to bed. We're not doing a body run right now. And then you log back in and you got like little backpacks everywhere scattered across the map. And you're like, okay, not only do we have no bearing on a fort or like reestablishing any sort of home base, now our best gear is in a high level area and we're not like collected enough to actually go in and execute on that level. So I mean like this almost feels like a game like if you and a group of people just want to get down and hunker in, I think this is a game that could be that. But for the way that I play games, and I think we play games, like we're there for the quick hit, understand how the mechanics work, and kind of move on. And when you see the time commitment it takes to actually be good and experience the fullness of this game, it's kind of a turn off.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, like I said, if you commit to this being your main game and that's all you're going to play, that's fine, right? You're going to find a ton of enjoyment from this game, right? You're like, hey, we're going to go in and hang out and Grounded, and we're going to play and gather some stuff, and every experience that you have is going to be different. The loot's going to be spread around. You're going to find different things in different spaces, and you're like, oh, this is really cool to explore. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of like, let's just get in and get the main campaign done, it's the wrong attitude. It's just the wrong attitude for this game.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And this kind of folds into the next game that I brought. And the game that I brought is also a survival game, much like this, and it's Valheim. Valheim is a very cool game. It's in beta still, I believe. It was big in essentially you're a Viking, but you're kind of doing the same thing. You're dropped into this world, you have nothing on your back, and it's a survival game where you get with your buddies and like venture out in the woods and do the best you can to survive. And I think what this year taught me in playing Valheim and grounded was that I understand the appeal of a survival game now. Like I understand like going out and like, oh, how does this work? How does this fit together? And I have never had that experience. And that's like a Minecraft experience that many have had years ago and they understand that format. This was the first time I've actually started to appreciate that gameplay style, but I also appreciate it to the point where it's like I'm not going to stick around and live in either of these games. Like they're very cool. You can really sink your teeth in. This is another game that you could get in, spend 60 hours with your buddies and still not see everything. And I appreciate it, but I can't recommend it for those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that there would ever be a game, that you would, um, be like, "I'm gonna commit to this being my main game," right? Because, like, for me, I had, StarCraft 2,
Right.
right? And that was a real-time strategy. I've probably played, I mean, I could look at my statistics, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 4,500 games of
Right.
StarCraft 2. And that was my main game for years, right?
Yeah.
That's what I played. Do you think that you could ever develop a game like that for yourself? That's like, even if it was Fortnite or Minecraft or Diablo or whatever it may be, or do you just feel that you're not that kind of gamer?
Probably the latter. Like I don't think I'm that type of gamer. You know, the way that I like to experience games is like each one is an experience and it's like handcrafted for the user to have a different experience. And once I understand how the pieces get together, like I'm just kind of like, okay, yeah, I get it, right? I know that I'm never going to take the time to be the best at a Fortnite, StarCraft, pick it, right? And then also, whenever I've played an MMO or something of that nature, I find that I hit a level where it's like, okay, I understand the loop. Like we get together, we do the raid, we get the shiny thing, the gear looks cool, now we have to go do it again. And there's never been a community that I've been in personally that keeps me there. But I also feel like I get to a point where it's like, okay, I've experienced this. Look at all these other experiences. I gotta get in and experience this because time is a known quantity, right? And I want to see as many of these different things as I can. So I I would err on the side to say no. I would never like fully invest into one game, but I'm also the kind of guy that's like, who knows? Like something could
Yeah.
come along tomorrow that hits me. Like I think back to, and I know you were kind of getting to game philosophy, which I love, but you know, I think back to Fortnite last year, right? We had a cool thing going on where there was like 4 or 5 of us that would like rotate and play Fortnite and new skins and new maps and look at these missions. Hey, this is cool. And we really hit like a really good stride where we ran that game for what, 9 months? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely for a long time, and I think that it had to do with for I mean, you and I will talk about that relentlessly. We last year, I think we put both of us put Fortnite on our game of the year list, if not our number one game of the year list on when we were
yeah,
doing the thing with Underpowered.
it was.
But um they are the masters at creating events and reasons to come back and things to come see. I think that it's hard when you get older and you got to get the boys together. And
Yeah.
it's like we all got to get lined up on the same day at the same time at night. You know, some of us are early gamers, some of us are late gamers, and it's not as fun, right?
Mhm.
Like you and I both had that experience this year where we hopped back on. We got slaughtered a whole bunch of times, and then we were like, "Yep, I remember what this is about." And
Go
like,
watch the
I'm
last
not.
live. I couldn't even kill
Yeah,
bots, dude. I couldn't even kill the bots. Like the
yeah.
bots were so bad,
And
man.
I played for an hour and a half on one of our streams where on a Fortnite stream where I spent the entire hour and a half trying to get in and out of a solo lobby, and I maybe played 4 matches, and like that's my hour of game time. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I don't know that very many games have been able to replicate the likes of say World of Warcraft, where there's constantly things and communities and things like you're just meeting your friends and you're gonna go grind. Like no one's been able to capture that,
Yeah.
and I think that that's a lot of what people are looking for.
I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. And like, there's going to be a game that comes back where like you and I get back in. You know, we thought it was going to be Diablo, and then we had issues like with our computers working together properly, and like this, that, and the other thing. But like, there's going to be something that pops up that like brings us back in. I think that's one of the biggest reasons I was excited to see the GTA 6 trailer. Like, not only does it look cool, I love the setting. You know, in the past, I was telling Dr. Z this the other day I always get excited for a GTA game, and then I realize it's just driving from point A to point B. And like if that happens again, which it probably will, I'm going to be greatly disappointed. But if there's a multiplayer aspect where the 3 or 4 of us can get in there and do a bank heist, like that seems like that could be a lot of fun and something that could really carry. So when games like that come out, like I think we really have to hop on them when the iron's hot because there is a lot to say about that energy in those games, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that because I felt very similarly. I think the last one that I played was Vice City. And I remember thinking like everybody thought it was just the greatest game ever. And I remember going, all I'm doing is like go driving in a car, getting over here, shooting a bunch of people up, getting back in a car, driving over here. And I remember being in awe of that game when it came out because I was like, this feels like a living city with the noise and the people talking, but it felt a little bit too much like real life where it was like, go run this errand, go collect this dough, drive back over here, go back to your garage, go back. You know what I mean? So I was never as hyped on those games as, as we can see so many people clearly are. Um,
Right.
it went over my head.
Yeah. And that's understandable. I feel like every time I go to play a GTA game, like I'm excited for the first 3 hours and I'm like, oh, it's a very similar thing. Like it hasn't evolved. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think it shares a lot of the same issues that I believe Starfield is going through right now. And like I said, I'm going to talk more about that next week. But like you look at these titles that have been around for 10 years and you can only like innovate those games so much, right? Like what else are you going to do to GTA 6 to make it not drive around and shoot people? Like that is video games. You can't get too far
Yeah.
outside of that. And I think that
Yeah.
Starfield is in a very similar scenario. They're like, "Hey, look, everyone loves Skyrim. Everyone loves this. We're going to build out a game that's like the next evolution. We're going to take our framework and we're going to take it to the next level." But they were so like in their lab creating this really cool thing that everybody on the team thought was cool that when they sent it to the world's like, it's not as fun and also like it's very similar, right? I think Bethesda fatigue is part of the reason Starfield came out to such mixed reviews. I think if people had not played 4 Fallout games and all of these other games that were so set in a similar universe, it wouldn't have failed the way it did. And I think that GTA also runs the risk of that being a huge issue for them when 6 launches.
Yeah, I think so, and that's the difficulty, right? The difficulty is that you're designing a game and it's going to take you 10 years for the game to come out.
Yep.
And so when you start designing it, people are into a certain thing. And then, as we evolve and our attention evolves and now we're on TikTok and social media and like we're different. It's different than it was 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And so our interests are different, right? You're in the middle of designing this thing and you go, oh, this is exactly what we've already done, and people are going to be bored out of their mind. So, I completely agree. I mean, I feel that way. I mean, you have to look at someone who's done it well.
Hmm.
I mean, Rockstar has already done things amazing, right? I.e., Red Dead Redemption 2, which
Yeah.
is the greatest game of all time.
Hmm.
In my opinion, that would probably be my. I think we did a top 10 list on UP, and I think that was my number one game
Is that yeah.
um, of all time. And you have to look at why that was. Every single thing that they designed what reinforced the narrative. So the hunting, the fishing, the fact that your clothes got wet, right? It was so immersive that the GTA is going to have to do the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to take the cumbersome parts like travel and make them interesting, right? You're okay. We have to. It's a Rockstar game. We have to ride our horse from place to place to get to the next objective. Well, along the way, you're gonna see some people stealing something from a woman. You're gonna see something else random happening, and that's what they're gonna have to do in GTA, right? Okay, if we are gonna have to drive everywhere in a car, well then there's going to be a drive-by shooting going on over here in game. There's going to be somebody robbing a store. There's going to be something on fire along the way that makes us go like every single time I get in my car and I actually kind of want to go for a drive because every time I go for a drive there's something new that's happening in the world that's going to distract me from the fact that I'm just driving to my next objective.
They have to. They have to do something. And I think you're exactly right. The game has changed a lot. and they can't like rest on their laurels. And like luckily they have like, over a year to still develop it. I was listening to the Jeff Gersman show. Shout out to Jeff Gersman. If you ever hear this, you're huge inspiration to me. But what he was saying was that just like you said, like these games take 10 years to develop, and now this game is like curbing from a lot of the Florida vibes. Like, are those still going to even be? Can you still make fun of Florida people in 2.5 years, right? Will that joke have run its course? And arguably, Florida Man has already run its course, right? You remember hearing that like 18 months ago, and then they designed a game around it. And like even now, you don't hear people making fun of Florida the way they did. So it's
Yeah.
really hard to like hit a moving target, especially when you're in a 10-year dev cycle or whatever it comes out to be.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I think the key is right, like with the driving. If you remember GTA 3 or Vice City or whatever it was, you would get on this long freeway and then you would just be driving and you'd have to navigate through traffic and you'd be like, there's nothing going on, right? So if they can take that, it's like every developer has to figure out that most challenging element of getting how do we get the player from place to place and how do we make that not boring. That like
Yeah.
Zelda struggles with that, like they all struggle with that, right? Like
Starfield, that's
how
like
we
the biggest
climbing,
issue. Yeah.
traveling, going to the new location, like we have to set up a loading screen or we have to set up something that says you're doing something fun over here and you want to get over here to do it. Like how can we make that not boring? I always go back to like Uncharted, right? Because
Yeah.
Uncharted was one of the first people that was like, you're climbing on rocks, and every third rock you would climb on would fall down. And so then you would then have to be attentive while you were climbing. Or, right, God of War does this transition where they would go between the crack and the rocks, and there
That's
would be
right.
this super close up on Kratos' face. Every scene
To
that was
hide,
their transition was the going between two rocks.
and it was to
But it
hide the
was like
load, right? It was to
it
hide
was
the
to hide
loading.
the
Yeah.
load, right? They have to do it though. It's
Hmm.
part of the game. And but like they made it short and they made a super close up detail of Kratos' face, and you didn't feel cheated. You weren't doing that for 37 minutes. So hopefully they'll figure it out. Hopefully some interesting stuff will happen. And if they can figure that out, it's a home run, I
Well,
think.
it's GTA. It's gonna be a home run. Like honestly, you said I don't know if you guys saw this short on the channel or not, but like I made fun of them because they're like, "Oh, we're teasing a trailer," and I'm like, "Come on, bro! Like who teases a trailer? Get over yourself. Just launch the trailer like everyone else." And then I watch the trailer and I'm like, no one does it like Rockstar. Like why? Why do you have this like mystique or like polish that nobody else can pull off? And I've just been really impressed. Thinking back to the older GTAs, so much of them were carried by the graphics. You were like, "Oh, I'm in New York City. That's why I will drive further is because I'm so in awe of how immersive this game is." And kind of transitioning to our next category, this is a couple of games that I had a lot of trouble getting into that people that I respect greatly in the games journalism community raved and raved about. And speaking of graphics, this is a very dressed down version of graphics. And the first one I have here to kind of segue in is a game called Tunic. Tunic is kind of like a what is it? I think they call it 2.5D style top down game where you play a fox who really feels like has taken a lot of inspiration from Zelda, and you are walking around a map and you're essentially dropped in and say, okay, go figure it out. And as you make your way through, you're trying to interact with things, you're hitting different buttons, there's little to no tutorial, and you basically just peel back the gameplay as the game goes on. People loved this game, and I tried my darndest to like this game, Phil, but I need direction, dude. I cannot just randomly walk through maps and then not know how to level up my character until it dawns on me. I found it frustrating. It'd be like, really? I've had all this material and I could have upgraded this like 3 sessions ago, and I'm just getting murdered by all of these like simps. Like I just got so frustrated that I had to just put this game down, and I don't think I'll be going back.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are very similar in that. Like, it's probably why I've never done well with Dark Souls, is that I I'm not the type of person that wants to go around and bang on every rock in the map to kind of figure out which ones do things and which ones don't. A lot of the reasons why, like I've said, there are three main reasons why I play games. One is for a sense of community. One is for a story-driven narrative because I want to be told a piece of philosophy, or I want to be told something through a gaming. And I think that there's no other way to do it like gaming can do it. If you really immerse someone in a philosophy, that's one of the things that makes a game like Skyrim great. It was like people could explore their own morality. My son does this where he will play Zelda and he will just slice the NPCs, or he'll shoot
Right.
arrows at them, and he's just toying around with what the game will allow him to do, and that's what makes gaming really interesting. And the third one is competition.
Mhm.
And so I don't really, there are some people who they like the immersion of a world, and they are very Minecrafty, and they are very like, let's go bang on every rock, and let's try every upgrade of every potion, and let's try to pick up every sword and everything and see what they do and inspect them and look at them. And kudos to those people. You are really probably making the developers feel like a sense of pride and full of love, because you're really exploring this thing that they took hundreds of thousands of hours to build. It's just not for me.
Yeah,
It's just not for me.
and I'm really impressed. I think the reason this got so much praise is because the game design is really smart, right? Like you're put into a world and you figure it out as the player. Like the way they breadcrumb you to the different things that are happening in the world is pretty impressive. Like it's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, like uh, I'm an efficient gamer. That's how I would describe myself. I'm gonna get the experience and move the heck on. And when I'm put in a situation where it's like, I don't know, just play around and figure it out, like that's not for me. And that is what this game did. So as somebody who really values like games that respect your time, I don't feel like Tunic does that fully, but I also appreciate it because the game design is so innovative that I understand the appeal that many had. Just did not sit well with me.
Yeah, sometimes they're just not for you. They're designed for a certain, like, I've always had a romantic desire to beat a Souls game, whether that was any of the Dark Souls or Bloodborne or but like
Maybe we should do Elden Ring, dude. Everybody said it was one of the best.
they have, and we missed it. Was it last year is when it came
I
out?
think so, like
And
2022 or
I,
P. What's Lives of the Pinocchio?
yeah, Lies of P. I've
Yeah.
been watching that game. That game is on the definitely on the honorable mentions list for this year, and this is a probably a good time to bring this up because that I never didn't see much press for that at all, and
Yeah.
I didn't see many trailers. I didn't see much gameplay footage, and then all of a sudden I saw someone post a TikTok about it, and I was like, "This is pretty cool." And very soulsy, very like memorizing combinations, but the steampunk sort of art design, I was all about it, but I probably am not going to play it because I don't have 300 hours a week to, right? Like if I'm doing that 300 hours a week, just grinding, banging on games, learning, that's my job. 1 hour. Oh man, if I don't make some kind of progress in an evening, I'm shutting it off. I'm
Dude,
shutting it off
dude.
quick.
So have you played any of this yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
this is one that I would really like to get your feedback on because I mean the graphics look slick. It's on Game Pass, so you gotta love the price. And yeah, man, I've always been like attracted to Dark Soulsian games, and every time I've tried one, I bounced off, just like you. Like Sekiro was probably the closest I got to a game that I really enjoyed, and I hit a boss in that level that I could not beat, and I was like, nope, I'm done. Not gonna do this anymore. And it was one of those, you ever like get frustrated with the game and you just like grab a controller and just squeeze it? Yeah, that's when I knew that that game was probably not for
yeah, man, it sucks because it's like that would definitely add some nerd cred to both of us if we were able to beat that.
me.
But I just don't see the bandwidth being there for me.
Okay, we got to do it. We got to do something. At least give it a good college
Okay.
try. And speaking of one that I gave a good college try is a game that's also on a lot of Game Journal's top tens of 2022, and this is Vampire Survivors. This is a game that I have played quite a bit early in the year because everybody came out and said this is the best game ever. You got to play it. And it really is just like they throw a whole bunch of characters on you. It's a top-down type game, and you are essentially just trying to survive as long as you can. You kill more monsters, you pick up gems, you then level up. You can spec in one direction or the other, and as you're gathering items from drops, they like fuse together and make different power-ups. The problem that I ran into with this game is it feels a lot like an arcade game to me. In other words, like you get in, you play a 30-minute match, you can set the speed up. People have recommended turn the speed up, try to spec in one direction at a time. And I've done that. It's just too similar. Like I get like 10, 15 minutes in and I'm like, this is the same thing. And you're gonna maybe let me peek behind the curtain and see the same thing or something different, which is what I'm here for. Like I'm here for the next experience, the next hit, the next evolution of this game and what's happening. And it just became too samey and too arcadey. And I got to a point where it's just like I don't feel like I'm making meaningful progress in this game. Therefore, I got to park it.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now, this is just not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this is dopamine overload.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that, like I said, it doesn't fit into my model. There's no competitiveness. There's no narrative driven. There's no like, there's no sense of community. This is a game, like you said, that you play for an evening. This is a great Game Pass game. Is that where you played it?
It is. Yep.
Yeah, so this is great for Game Pass. Like games like this are great for Game Pass because you can turn them on, play. You don't feel like you're slighted $15. You don't feel like you are out of money, and you can have it, and that's cool. And it gives Game Pass some library to have some of these different experiences. But you wouldn't spend more than a couple evenings playing this before you were like, this is not for me.
Yeah, and when we initially talked about this, it had just come out on cell phones, and we were all like, "Whoa, it's on cell phones!" I didn't even download it because I felt how time would pass. Right, you get in the zone, and all of a sudden, you feel that flow state come over where you're just murking enemies. And I intentionally keep games off of my phone because I cannot waste that kind of time on my phone, if that makes sense. Like I need to be productive when that cell phone is in my hands. And if I have something as sticky or as addictive as this on my device, it's not a good scenario for me. So I never downloaded it. I'm sure it's a great way to play there. If you're in an airport and you got to kill time, sure. But I am purposefully keeping this off my phone.
Yeah, I mean, this is you play a game like this, right? Especially as somebody who's older, and you go like, you never feel good when you're done playing it,
Right.
right? It's not something that you're like, wow, I'm glad I did that.
That
You're
was an
like, well,
experience.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, you're like, well, I was in line getting coffee and I had nothing better to do, or I was at an airport, or I was like at a hotel on some crappy Wi-Fi, or right, like something of that nature. But you never feel good when you're done with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the same could be said about social media, right? There's a lot of things that
Yeah.
talk about social media ruining our brain. I like to try to follow stuff that is somewhat like feels like it's giving me good, and it's probably not. Like if the scientists were to tell me, they're like, no, you're actually not learning anything, which is probably true. But anyway,
Right.
it feels like the dopamine is hitting like raw and like there's no facade of like gaining traction there. So
Yeah.
it wasn't for
Yeah.
me, but
Agreed.
like Tunic and Vampire Survivors both like top of the list of many game of the year entities in 2022, and both games that I like bounced off completely. Like went in, gave it the good college try. Like there's a good game in here, right? And I start to see the elements of the good game, and I'm like, I just uh, yes, but thanks, but no thanks is kind of where I landed on both those titles.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, it seems like I would probably make the same decision.
Yeah. So which takes us over to best family game. These are games that I've been playing with my family. I know that the same goes for you. The first of which is a game that I thought was going to take over at the end of 2022. I am on record saying, hey, this game is going to be everywhere. Everyone's going to love it. This game is Disney Dreamlight Valley. Stardew meets all of the cast of Disney. I thought it was brilliant. You get to come in, do the star view thing. Star view? Is that right? Stardew Valley,
Stardew.
where you are creating a house and changing outfits, and then all of a sudden they're bringing in different cast members from movies. It just felt like a slam dunk all around. This game came and went. My family was all about it for like 6 weeks, and then it was just gone. Like, did not want to play it, did not want to talk about it, and I was surprised that it came and went. But those times that we had to like dive into the Disney universe, they were really digging it.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Why do you think they bounced off it?
Um, I think they bounced off of it because it was too difficult. It was too advanced for them to really understand the concepts, and maybe they were too young, right? My kiddos are not exactly reading on their own right now, so I couldn't exactly hand them the controller and say go. And then they didn't quite understand the economics of it. So I would go in, earn all the coins, and then they'd spend it on like a tote bag, and then be mad that they didn't have enough coins to recruit the next character. And I'm like, well, you just sent it on a stupid red tote bag. Like, that's life. Sorry, you shouldn't have bought
Yeah.
that.
Why did you bounce off of it?
Um, why did I bounce off of it? That's a good question. I don't normally stick with these types of games. Like, base building games are just not ones that I normally stick with. And I think part of it is resource management. And then this was a free to play game when I played it. I don't know if it's still a free to play game. But essentially, I feel like some of these games are a little predatory in their inventory management systems. In other words, we're going to give you a bunch of stuff, but only give you 20 slots, and you need to pay for 12 more slots. And that just always feels cheap to me. And I feel like this game did that a little too early, and I felt like they were going to try to get more money out of me, which immediately turned me off.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it right there. Anytime you have a game where it's like, I felt that way about like Clash of Clans, right? Like most phone games, that's what killed it for you, right? Is like you get to a certain place where, um, hey, you're 3 hours in, you cannot get any further by merit alone, and you eventually get to a place where you're like, you are going to have to fork over money now, and then I'm like, I'm not gonna do that.
No,
You know what I mean? That's
no.
not what this experience is. I'm not gonna pay by the minute. You're not gonna get me to do that. I will turn all of this off and not spend another dime before I give you a single cent.
Dude, I'm the same way. Like, anytime they start asking for money, I'm like, please don't. Like, I would much rather buy a full game than go in and try to be nickeled and dimed. Like, I just can't. It's not for me. It's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with my son because I'm a little old school about that, and I said, I'm not like you can spend your allowance on Yu-Gi-Oh cards if you want to, but you are not buying in-game purchases. We are not buying in-game outfits for characters. I am that dad where you don't own anything. You've literally spent your money for nothing because you're not going to play that game in a year. I know I'm a little bit old for saying that, but I've never been about the I've never like League of Legends, none of them. I never spent a single dime on any skins or outfits or unlocking battle passes or I just can't do it because I know in another year's time I'm going to be playing something completely different. I would much rather pay the $60 once or $70 once, have my price, have it, own what I own, and be good with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's probably an old school mentality, and I have the exact same thing. Like, I still buy carts instead of downloadable games so I can like switch them with friends. And people are like, why? And I'm like, that's why. That's why. And then also this whole like profile nonsense with the Nintendo platform. Oh my gosh, you want to get me on a you want to get me in a place where I'm going to complain for 16 hours? That's going to be where you're going to get me.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way with that, where you can switch back and forth, and it's like I have to buy it again, or
Yeah.
I have to buy it, and you're like, dude, really,
And it's a
really? Like if
parent-child
I had,
account. Like, it's a child account, and the adult owns the account. And you're still not gonna let me play it? Like, boy,
mm,
you're screwing up, man. You're screwing
you're not
up. Like,
getting
you are
you're
missing
not
it,
getting your five
Nintendo.
dollars a month.
No,
Yeah, you're not
heck
getting your
no.
$5 a month for
Shoot,
Nintendo
I gotta
Online.
go cancel that. Gosh darn it, I'm getting taken. So I would say that the highlight game for my family in 2023 is this game called Tinykin. Tinykin is basically about an individual who gets shrunken down, and you are going through a house collecting little like Tinykins is what they're called. And they're little alien fellows, and you can throw them kind of like Pikmin back in the day, and you can manipulate the world. So if you need to like carry the key to the basement, you got to find 10 of them. So you go around the map and you collect them in the different corners of the house, and each level is based on a different room, right? So one is a bathroom, one is a kitchen, one is a bedroom, and it's really like has a good momentum where you're moving around and zipping around the space really well. But I tell you what, my kids freaking loved this game. They would get back from school and be like, Tinykin, Tinykin, Tinykin. And we played it like beyond what I thought we were going to the point where we saw credits on this game. And I'm like, no, it's the game's over. And they're like, but but let's start again. Let's play it again. And I'm like, no, that doesn't really replay games, but I'll turn it on for you. And they're like, but we want to play Tinykin. Like they wanted that, like that feeling of being in it. So it was so enjoyable that I would highly recommend it. Just let the family sit around and play it. My kids are on the younger side, 5 and 7 currently. So if you're in that zone, this was one that really worked for the entire fam. They'd plug in and love it.
What did they like specifically about it? What was the thing that they enjoyed? Because like I know that for my son, it's like unlocking new characters or getting new weapons or getting new things. What was the gimmick in this that made them want to keep coming back to it?
So I think the writing is surprisingly good, right? So like you get in and you see a guy and he's like, "Hey, you need to find like the goggles in the map." And I'm like, "Okay, girls, where are the goggles? We got to find them." And we kind of go out and like, "Oh, well, here's a door. We need this to open the door. I guess we got to find 5 more yellows. Do you guys see any yellows?" So it really became like this back and forth of them helping me like progress the story as a whole. And I guess, kind of comparing it to other games that I've played, some of those are just too dense for them to really grasp, or it just like has a different feel to it. Whereas this had a great feeling of discovery and like, oh, there's a pink one. Oh, get this. Oh, do that. And like, oh, we should go up on the ladder all the way. Like there was just a really good sense of discovery, and it was all very familiar because it's based on home. It's all home-based items, right? A lamp, a bedside post, whatever, easily describable, easy relatable, and I think it just really clicked in for them, and they couldn't stop, man. It was cool to see.
I love that. I love that. I think that your observation is correct about having an environment which is relatable,
Mhm.
having items that kids know and like, oh, this is a teddy bear and this is a skateboard and these are some goggles and they're like, we know what these things are. Like, okay. Sometimes I would play Zelda with my son and it's unrelatable, right?
Right.
There's monsters running around. Oh, there's things like, oh, what are these things? What are these jellies? I've never seen anything like that before, and it create some disconnect.
Speaking of which, I mean, I know that that is a big family game for you. I know I took a lot of joy in playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom with my family. Anything you want to share about your experience there with the fam?
No, that's I mean, first I would say beating it is a pain in the ass. And like 40 minutes to an hour for a final boss for a kids game is like way too long.
40
This
minutes?
did you see end credits on it?
I did. That slog to the final boss, I should have quit there, and I found my way
I
through
mean,
that.
I looked that up, and then once I got to the bottom, I went to the I looked up how to go to the place where you could set a special portal. So I made the special portal right. There's a if you go to one of the I don't know what it's called, one of the research facilities, and you do a bunch of side quests, he gives you essentially two teleport pads. So then that you can set anywhere on the map forever, and you can leave them there and you can move them. So I went through that slog to get down. I just ran past all the bosses and I got to where you jump off the edge and go down. Um, and I put a teleport pad right there so I could just face the final boss whenever I wanted to without having to do that slog again. And I can see by looking at your face that you didn't do that.
No, I saved it before the boss, beat the boss, and I don't know that I'll ever go back to this game.
Yeah, I mean, the boss battle itself, fighting through the waves of guys and then the various forms of Ganon. in total is about 40 minutes from start to finish if you do all of the battles in a row. And I got done with it, and I was the dad of the hour. I had the family cheering me on, and, after I got done, I was sweating. It was time for bed, and I said, I'm not ever doing that again, like, not in a serious way, whereas Breath of the Wild, it was so easy. My son would make me replay that final boss battle 10, 15 times to watch the films at the end because he wanted to see the videos at the end.
Yeah.
But this one, I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm
No.
not. I beat it once. You got to see the ending. You know it happens. Just like someone made a funny joke the other day. It's like every Zelda game is like him starting off all powerful and then losing all of his hearts and all of his stuff and then starting all over again at the very beginning and grinding it out again. So I was like, you got to see the ending. You know how it ends. I'm not. We touch it still sometimes, but it doesn't. It's a game that relies so heavily on mythology and story
Mhm.
that once you know how it ends, you're kind of the magic is kind of gone. Right. And I'm not a builder. There's a lot of people in this game who were builders, built cool contrapt. I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
I did not do any of the zonite building to none of that. I did none of it. I just sword and
Me neither.
shield, played it through and finished it.
Yeah, and I did that same thing. And like, yeah, I don't know if you're watching the screen out there, like this whole like preset the builds, that was like the last thing I found in the entire game. It was like, well, I'm going to beat Ganon now, and now you're going to give me this? Like this is really dumb. So
Yeah.
that was a little frustrating. I couldn't get my family to really like dive into this game. And I think part of it was so punishing. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you're riding a horse, you're flying out, and then like now you lost your horse. Like, what do you want to do? We want the horse. Well, horse is gone. Like, what do you what do you want to do next? You know, like it was so punishing that it was like they just weren't quite into it. And maybe it's just
Yeah.
like time and place. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, well, I always laugh because I think to myself, there is nothing more ironic than the depths of people developing a Zelda game that just like we want you to explore, but we're gonna punish you so heavily in the depths where you're not gonna know where you're going. You're gonna be wandering around in the absolute dark and like, but go explore. And there's nothing down there. There's no loot. There's nothing good. Right? All you're doing is farming monster
Yeah.
parts while you're
Well,
down
and
there.
like okay,
Um,
and I'm like looking at the screen right now, and I don't think you can see the gameplay, but if you could, it's raining, it's on a bridge, and there's a big Hintox or whatever, the big burly guy sitting on the bridge.
yeah.
And I remember I got into multiple loads here where I just could not find a way to kill this guy. And it took me like 30 or 40 tries to get past him to get where I needed to go. And anytime the girls, like my kiddos, like realize that I'm in that situation, they're like, yeah, we don't, this isn't fun. Like, this isn't fun at all. Like, you are just
Yeah.
bashing your head against Ganon for 40 minutes and it's just not enjoyable. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
there there's one section, just so you know, down in the depths, which you'll never do because I'm not gonna do it, and I know if I'm not gonna do it, you're definitely not gonna do it. But there is one area down in the depths where if you get down there and you have to fight 5 Lionels in a row,
What?
like, without dying, so one after the other, you fight one, you kill one, then another one comes out, and if you beat all 5, you get Majora's Mask. Essentially,
What?
like and you just it doesn't do anything, you just can wear it. But I got through 4 of them. I got through 4, I beat 4 of the Lionels, and then I was on the 5th one, and I just died, and I was like, "That's it." This is
No
like way,
way.
way too grindy, way too long. I'm not. Although it does seem like is this gameplay directly from you?
It is not. No, I just pulled this. I
I'm about to
pulled this
say
randomly.
this whoever this is has got some good outfits.
Yeah, no, good outfits and like definitely knows the game. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, so
exactly.
like I if you remember when we were doing our other show, we were like trying to figure out what the best combination was. And I realized I was completely out of my depth when somebody's like, "Oh yeah, you got to get the Lionel horn and fuse it with this weapon." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know those weapons existed." Like I thought I had a good like vibe on this and I've never even tried to kill a Lionel. So like I knew very quickly that I was outside of my depths and I kind of backed away quickly, if you remember, because I was like, oh shoot, I can't even get half these mats.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably won't be back. We've done it. We've seen it, couple 100 hours into it, whatever it was
It was a
for
good run.
months.
It was a good
It
run.
was good.
And
It
like
made it
preview,
worth it.
yeah, and preview to next week, this is going to be on my game of the year list. I think they did like some really good, I think they made some really interesting choices that are innovative in the world of gaming. And you'll hear more about it next week. But yeah, man, like this has been a great night to just like hang out with you. I know I totally bullied you into this. Game of the year is my favorite time of the year. And it's cool to just kind of go back and reflect on all the games that I've played and experiences I've had. Just kind of rolling through this list. There's a couple games that I'm taking to next year. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that I am not ready to cast judgment on. I'm excited to play it. Dr. Z is one of my close friends, and he's really high in that game. I'm playing Persona 5 Royale as well, which is a JRPG game and is a very JRPG. 150 hours to beat that game, Phil. Tell me how that makes you feel.
Makes me feel like I'm never gonna play it. Like, this is right. I always make the joke that the last time I played a Final Fantasy game truly was I played, I think it was Final Fantasy 13 I played. So I beat 12. And then I got 13 because I was high on that. And then there's, in typical JRPG fashion, there was a boss battle that took upwards of an hour. Just the battle itself of grinding, healing, slicing, healing, slicing, and I got done with that, and it was right in the beginning of the game, and I was like, I'm done. And I put it down and I never picked it up after that. I was like, this is stupid.
This is
I am
dumb.
not right. I am not doing that. Just make the numbers higher and lower. It doesn't need to be, I don't need to slash this guy 450 times. Like, and 3 hours into the game to like prove a point. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I can't do it. You just need some editing, bro. You
It's
don't
just
need
some
to make it
editing.
150.
No.
You don't need to make it 150 hours. You can distill that same experience into 20 to 40 hours. And I mean, I felt that way about other games where I'm like,
Mhm.
dude, this is 37. This is a
Yeah.
story driven game that's 37 hours. I can't do it.
Yeah, and I really think that that's the difficult part as a gamer. You know what I mean? And why I've always prioritized the game of the year lists is because I want the best experience, and games are long. Like the games are long. This is not like being a movie buff. Like you can be a movie buff and watch the 10 best films in 2 weeks. Like you can't do that with games. Like you really have to commit, which is partly why, and I sent you a podcast earlier that I know you listened to, but it's like, why do I do this? Why am I drawn to this? And the reason I'm drawn to doing this is because I feel like you need to save time and try to play the games that are worth playing. And there are games out there that get a lot of love that aren't worth playing, in my opinion. And I think that that is kind of where I come from. And hopefully I'm providing some sort of value in that. At least it's like, for me to go back and say, like, these are the quintessential gaming experiences makes me feel like this hobby is worth it. So it's cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time to download with me and do this upright,
Yeah, I mean, well, that brings us full circle to the as we wrap up the show, which is you never answered my question.
which is
Of the 41 games that you beat or that you played this year, how many of them were free?
that is hilarious.
Which is a
In
which
fact,
is a good thing to ask simply because 10 years ago that wouldn't have even been a question.
right.
They
And
all would have been
in
money.
fact, I don't know if you see our run a show document, but down below I
I
said
do.
short idea, cost of Game Pass. And I'm gonna run those numbers. I would let me just X them. We're using Excel. Let's just do it this way. That one. Citizen Sleeper. So I'll just read them out loud. A Short Hike I played on Game Pass. Arcade Paradise, yes. Axiom Verge, no. Boomerang X, no. Citizen Sleeper, yes. Cyberpunk, no. Diablo, no. Disney Dreamlight Valley, yes. Escape Academy, yes. XO1, yes. Fire Emblem, no. Fortnite, I'm gonna pass on that one. Grounded, yes. Hard Shape Shipbreaker, yeah. Hard Space Shipbreaker, yes. Hi-Fi Rush, yes. Hogwarts Legacy, no. Immortality, yes. Kirby, no. Loop Hero, yes. Actually, I played that on Switch, but it was on Game Pass, so I'm gonna take that one off. Mario and Rabbids, no. Mario Golf, no. Metroid Dread, no. Norco, yes. Payday, yes.
Wow.
Persona 5 is on Game Pass, but I'm playing it on Switch, so technically a no, but it could have been a yes, so that's two in that
Okay.
category. Plague's Tale, yes. Pokemon Unite, no. Power Wash Simulator, yes. Pyre, no. Rumbleverse, free. Can't count that. Spider Heck, yes. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is no. I bought that one. Starfield, yes. Super Mario Wonder, no. Tinykin, yes. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, no. Tunic, yes. Valheim, yes. Vampire Survivors, yes. Warhammer, yes. Zelda, and then I have two Zeldas: Zelda's Link Awakening and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Of the, let's call them 39 games I played, 21 of those were in the Game Pass subscription this year, and
Wow.
23 of those would actually be more accurate because I chose to play them on a different platform because I wanted a mobile. So, you and I kind of had this conversation earlier in the year off camera, and it's like I'm playing so many games within the subscription that are games that I would be playing anyway, that it makes no sense for me not to be subbed to this Game Pass deal. Now, will it always be like this sweet? Who knows? Like right now, what Microsoft is doing is they're trying to establish market share. They're outperforming Sony's offering in terms of them providing the same service. So what they're doing is they're gaining market share, then the price is going to go up and the titles may drop because they're going to have to make money on it eventually. But at the end of the day, like the getting seems real good right now.
Yeah, I mean that is 2/3 of your games
Yeah.
were free to play, which were experiences that you would not have otherwise had. And like you said, it may not always be that this way, but for right now it is. So you're gonna get it while you can get it.
Yeah, and like Starfield, right? Like that's a $70 game new. And then if you also wanted to play like all the DLC and all that stuff, it would also be cost you something. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I have always like here's my deal. I try not to be a fanboy, right? I've always gone towards Xbox because we're in the Pacific Northwest and I feel like a local buy is just what I choose to do, right? If everything's being shipped overseas and it's a mega corp, do they really need my money? Like we could go down that path. But I've always gravitated towards Microsoft because we have people that I know that work at Microsoft. So I've always gone with Xbox, but being a fanboy is always something that I'm very cautious of because we've worked with people in the past and I know individuals that are so diehard one way that they want to die on a sword and say, this game's the best and I haven't played any other titles. And I don't want to be that guy, right? It's why I have a PlayStation, it's why I have a Switch, it's why I'm considering a Steam Deck for 2024. Like all of these different titles are created equally and I think they all need a fair shake. So as much as I love Game Pass, I also want to say like there are good experiences to be had and it's not the only way. Like there's a lot of people out there that are PlayStation people and good on you. This is just the camp that I've chose to build my tent in.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like, hey, there's a time and a place,
Yep.
and the time and the place for a free to play service. I mean, I am like you, where I will always choose to own a game
Mhm.
and have it and be able to share it and be able to give it to other people. I like that authority that I have and the investment that I've made. But there's going to be a time and a place, and the time and the place is exactly for a lot of the games that are on your list, which is these short quick time to beat arcade games, 10 hours or less, indie games that would not have ever even been touched if they hadn't been on Game Pass in the first place. And then you try them and you try them for an hour and you go, it's like renting something from Blockbuster and you go, this game sucks. I don't like it. I'm going to take it back. And, or this is really great. And then now that developer is going to get a ton of money and they're going to be able to make something better. And then I'll be able to spend money on whatever it is that they actually make when they make it. So that's the utility of it. It's a tool, nothing more. But it's just amazing to see like how much of your library was benefited from a free to play model.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty eye-opening that you asked that too. Like I know you asked that earlier. So it's cool to see. Like part of me is like, "Hey, I'm saving money." But, part of the reason I designed this way, this list, all of going back and doing it is like to do it on the cheap. Like I always wanted to go get a used copy rather than a new copy because I felt like, paying $30 for a game made more sense than $60 a game. And this really
Yeah.
has changed my mindset. It really has.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's more like time based rather than money based. And in the past, it's always
Yep.
been money based, and then time was second. I want more bang for my buck, therefore I'm going to do it like this. And now that
Yeah,
that
I mean,
is flipped.
yeah, this is the shift that you and I have been talking about as we've gotten older. Whereas, did we make a short about that? I feel like we did
Ooh,
make a
that's
short
a
about that. Where
good one.
where I posted one that was exactly, maybe I didn't, but the short was
You did.
essentially,
You did.
uh, yeah, as we get older, there's a shift, and the shift becomes, it's not just Game Pass. It's just Game Pass happens to exacerbate this idea that we already believe, which is like, hey, money's less of an issue now than it ever was. Time is the issue now.
Hmm.
So if you're gonna go and do a bunch of lazy things in game development and make me grind for 400 hours doing the same thing over and over again, that when you could do it in 2 hours, I'm done. I don't want to play it. It's over, right? Like, when if you're 12, you'll play 400 hours of Destiny, because you have that time. When you're old, I just want the core essence of the experience.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And yeah, it's just funny to watch the whole thing evolve and change, and we're gonna be here for it. If you're plugging in, if you watch this whole thing, wow, thank you. We are a gaming channel that focuses on short content. We try to knock out a short each and every day if we can. We talk a lot about game philosophy. We talk about game humor, and we're just here to enjoy the ride. Will we bring back live shows? I don't know. If you want them, maybe. But it's a good opportunity to just reconnect with Phil. We'll probably do some multiplayer stuff in the near future after the juice. And yeah, man, I just appreciate you being on this journey and building this thing out. It's fun times.
It's been a blast, man. It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. We are probably going to hit 250,000 in views by the end of the year on one platform, and that is big for us. It's also surprising. I don't think you or I thought we were ever going to hit the traction we did as quickly as we did. So
No, I
it's
was,
cool,
yeah,
man.
no, definitely not. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're out there and you're checking us on YouTube, wherever you saw us short, feel free to check us out on all the socials. We're there. You'll find us. Thank you for being on, Phil. Anything else before we say goodnight?
No, let's sign it out.
Good night. Be well. Stay well. And of course, enjoy your games. Bye. Good work, dude. Oh, shit. Message. But the problem is your message is Discord, which is where I'm taking the feed from. So I can't check Discord. I'm sorry, man. That was lame. Whoops, my mic wasn't muted. If you're out there listening, good luck.